Today, nearly every country in the world is in debt. The United States has reached a historic record, over $38 trillion. The European Union owes $14 trillion. Japan around $9 trillion. Even oil-rich Saudi Arabia and export giants like Germany and China are buried in enormous debt. But here's the strange part. If every nation owes money, who are they all in debt to? We're standing at the intersection of money, power, and history. And believe me, nothing is as it seems. Debt isn't just a burden, it's the backbone of today's world. Every war, every crisis, every economic boom or collapse stands upon this invisible skeleton of debt. Rewind the film of history, and you'll see something disturbing. The world doesn't really owe anyone. It owes itself. But that doesn't mean everyone profits equally. Today, humanity carries a debt load of over $315 trillion, about 3 times the size of the global economy. To understand how we ended up here, we have to go back to where it all began. Before credit cards or digital money transfers existed, the idea of national debt was born. But it wasn't born on Wall Street. It was born on the battlefield. In 1694, England was at war with France, and its gold reserves had run out. The king turned to merchants and traders. "Lend me your money," he said, "and I'll pay you back with future taxes and interest." That event laid the foundation for the Bank of England. It was revolutionary. For the first time, a government could spend money it didn't yet have. And merchants received something priceless in return, a written promise from the state, a bond. That's how the modern financial system was born. France copied it, the Dutch improved it, and when America gained independence, it used the same system to finance its revolution. Debt was no longer something shameful. It became a symbol of trust. If you could borrow, it meant you could govern. Empires once conquered land for gold. Now they issued bonds to earn interest. The battlefield had turned into the balance sheet. Fast forward 3 centuries. Today, debt is the world's biggest export. The U.S. owes $38 trillion. Japan owes $9 trillion. And every 100 days the world takes on another $1 trillion of debt. No country is debt-free. No bank is without exposure. And we, ordinary people, are both debtors and creditors through our taxes, pensions, and savings. So the real question is, who truly owes whom? Let's look at the United States, the world's largest economy, because its debt isn't just America's debt, it's the world's. Half of that $38 trillion belongs to investors, mostly American banks, funds, insurance companies, and even the Federal Reserve itself. The rest, roughly $9 trillion, is held by foreign countries. Japan leads with $1 trillion, followed by China with about $800 billion. So yes, the saying, "America owes China," is technically true, but only about 2% true. In reality, America mostly owes itself. The Treasury issues bonds. Funds buy them. The central bank buys those funds and bonds back. New dollars are printed. Citizens pay taxes. Taxes fund the interest. And the interest flows right back into citizens' retirement accounts. It's a mirror, where debtor and creditor are reflections of the same system. And this isn't just in America. Japan lends to the U.S. The U.S., through the IMF, lends to Europe. Europe, through the World Bank, lends to developing nations. Those nations then use their reserves to buy American bonds. Every country writes IOUs to another. Each promise is backed by yet another promise. It's a global debt chain, like a poker table where everyone plays with borrowed money, and the only rule is No one can leave the table. Behind it all stand the markets, hedge funds, pension funds, central banks, and giant sovereign wealth funds. They control tens of trillions of dollars, and they decide which nations borrow cheaply and which pay the price. When they lose confidence, currencies collapse, governments fall, and economies reset. Democracy decides who governs, markets decide who survives, and at the top of this system sit its gods, the central banks. They don't just manage debt, they create it. When the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys bonds, it creates new money in exchange. One side gains an asset, the other gains a liability. Every dollar printed is someone's debt. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every banknote, every digital dollar is a silent promise to repay. This cycle has continued safely for decades. As long as investors believe that governments will pay interest, the machine keeps running. But what happens when that belief breaks? It already has, many times. In 2010, Greece couldn't pay its debt. Panic spread. Interest rates exploded. The International Monetary Fund and the European Central Bank stepped in, but the cost was brutal. Tax hikes, austerity, mass unemployment. For an entire generation, that rescue felt ill.
Argentina has defaulted multiple times. Sri Lanka ran out of dollars to pay for fuel. Each time the system breaks, the mask comes off, and the true creditors appear, the IMF, rating agencies, and faceless investors. But soon, the cycle begins again. New loans arrive. Old debts are refinanced. The same game continues, under new names. Because in this system, debt isn't meant to be repaid. It's meant to be rolled over. Governments have no plan to eliminate debt. Not now, not ever. That's not a secret. It's policy. We, the citizens, must repay our loans. But states survive not by paying, but by refinancing. They borrow anew to pay the old. Economists call it rolling over the debt. Debt itself has become the product. Interest is the price of stability, the rent of the modern world. And like a shark that must keep swimming to survive, the global economy must keep borrowing to stay alive. Today, this entire system doesn't rest on repayment. It rests on trust. The U.S. will never repay its $38 trillion. Japan hasn't repaid its debt in decades, yet still borrows at low interest. Because investors don't want their money back. They want to keep lending. Government debt is no longer a burden. It's collateral. A bond isn't a liability. It's an asset. For banks, it's security. For central banks, it's money itself. The irony is clear. If governments ever truly paid off their debts, the global system would collapse, because the system is debt. That's why governments don't aim to end debt. They aim to manage it. Debt is the heartbeat of capitalism. Every mortgage, every salary, every market pulse depends on it. So when politicians promise to balance the budget or end the debt, it's an illusion. The goal isn't to erase debt. It's to keep it sustainable, believable, and trusted. Because when trust dies, the system dies. Debt was never designed to be repaid, only to be believed in. As long as that belief holds, the cycle continues. But trust doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Interest payments flow upward, from taxpayers to bondholders. Debt isn't just between nations, it's between classes. The more debt grows, the greater the inequality becomes. The system rewards those who borrow, and punishes those who pay. It's a familiar story, only on a bigger scale. Lenders aren't villains, and borrowers aren't victims. They're two gears of the same machine. But if that machine ever stops, if new debt can no longer pay the old, then the question, who do we owe, will become terrifyingly real. Because at the top of this system, there isn't a single person in control. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF, not any central bank. They're all part of it. And so are we. Modern finance turned debt into money. Governments print it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and we live inside it. Debt is no longer a chain, it's a balance. But if that balance ever breaks, if trust collapses, the game ends. And on that day, we'll finally understand. Debt was never eternal. It was only a promise. If this video gave you a new perspective, Subscribe. History holds all the answers. And I'll show you where to find them.